So my carbon monoxide level was pretty high, and is there something on my face? There's something on my face, isn't there? Oh yeah. There was something on my face for sure. Having some issues with my diesel heater. Just wondering if the exhaust is supposed to be glowing red like that. Oh, that's flames. I'm glad I was out here when that happened, because that could have been very bad. It's wonderful. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Lowered Expectations. Thanks for lowering your expectations and hanging out with me here. I do appreciate it. In today's video, we are going to be doing some more testing on my diesel heater that is modified to burn waste engine oil. At the end of the last video, my heater overheated, and so we are going to tear it apart and take a look inside. We're going to find some surprises in there, and then we are going to do some more testing. At the risk of a major spoiler, I can tell you guys that the heater has now been running for over 28 hours, relatively problem-free. I've made some changes to the exhaust and some other stuff, but we'll get into that in this video. If you guys are interested in purchasing a diesel heater, there will be affiliate links as well as a discount code in the description below. Let's get to it. My heater overheated last night, and so I'm going to take it apart and clean out the diesel that more than likely built up inside of the fan area. I'm not going to clean out the burn chamber. I am going to continue to run this until it fails, basically. We're going to see how long that takes. I've decided I'm going to pull this completely apart and take a look inside. My excuse, or the excuse that I'm giving myself, is that I actually ran it for a day without pumping air into it, and so I should realistically clean it out and inspect it before continuing on with another test. The reality of the situation is I just want to take it apart and look inside there because I'm curious. But also, what I'm going to do, I think while I have it apart, I'm actually going to attempt to put the 2 kilowatt ECU on this heater. Always cut towards yourself. Oh no. Oh, that's what that sound was. Okay, well, fans are pretty cheap. What ended up happening is the heater overheated and that shut off the fuel pump. But because this was being drip fed, it kept feeding fuel in. And the heater will slow the fan down, but it doesn't shut the fan completely off. And so that actually sustained the burn. Melted holes right through it. Don't think it damaged anything else in here. I'm curious to see a whole bunch of things in here. I'm wondering how much oxides there are on the chamber, on the piece that I installed. I'm wondering how much carbon there is, where that carbon is. I'm wondering if there's a bunch of soot and ash. I'm wondering if my gasket broke, and it absolutely did. Okay, looks okay in there. That looks pretty promising, relatively speaking. That's not bad for about 3 days of testing. Let's pull that out. How much force is it going to take to pull this piece out? Not much. Very cool. Okay. Okay. I am really pleased with this. Wow. Okay, the most important piece to me is that the burn chamber in here has no crud whatsoever. So we don't have any buildup to deal with inside of the main burn chamber area. That is very cool. Our hole looks like it has a little bit of leakage on the outside of it, which is because this thing isn't sealed, it just sets up against there. So if we had a better setup there, that could definitely help. Okay. And now that's what this looks like. There are two very important things that I've learned here. One is that it has not oxidized this piece. And the second thing is that our mesh seems to actually be working, doing something. So that is great news. I'm not sure if the camera can pick up on this, but there doesn't appear to be any black nasty stuff. This is all ash, so there's no carbon building up in here, so we're getting a fairly complete burn. Now, when I peel this away, hopefully you guys could see how easy that was. There is carbon inside of here, and I have a feeling that this is why it started getting hot. We'll crush that in a second and take a deeper look inside of it, but I have a feeling that the reason why it started to get hot is because it started burning some residual that was, how do I say? The oil doesn't instantly flash off and burn. And because it doesn't instantly flash off and burn, some of it will build up and then it will burn off and the heater gets hotter when that happens. I think this deserves a little better explanation, partly because I don't want people attacking me in the comment section, and partly because I realized that what I said there wasn't entirely true. So when the heater is clean, we have oil dripping in on a red hot surface and it flashes off very quickly. However, inevitably some ash or soot gets left behind, and that ash or soot actually insulates or protects the oil. So the heat transfer from the metal can't actually get through to the oil. It's being protected basically by the ash. So eventually what you have is a buildup of oil inside of a clump of ash that isn't burning very well, and then all of a sudden it will get hot enough and it will flash off and burn, and then you get a temperature spike because you're getting a bunch of stuff burning all at once instead of burning gradually over time. This mesh seems to have worked really well. Oh, except that it's the stainless steel mesh is falling apart. It seems to be just in the area where the air is being injected with the fuel. So there's a pretty high oxygen environment. I'm actually quite impressed at how clean it is in there. Of course, clean is a relative term. There is a lot more stuff in there than if I were to be running diesel. Let's crush this stuff up and see what is actually in here. I can see that a lot of it is actually carbon. But yeah, see, it basically smushes away to almost nothing. All of this stuff is reduced to almost nothing. That is really good news, folks. A lot of that residue or buildup may have been a result of testing it before I was injecting the air with the fuel or with the waste oil. So we are going to clean it out, put it back together, and test it. Oh yeah, I need to get a fan, don't I? I'll have to grab a fan off of one of my other heaters. You probably noticed that the secondary chamber or secondary baffle came out quite easily and that it was quite easy to clean. Well, I had to come up with a solution so that it wouldn't fall out while I was trying to assemble it. And what I've done here, we've got a how do you say, consumable part. I'm basically using a piece of cardstock, 2 pieces of cardstock, and I put the baffle in until the hole is aligned with the fuel inlet hole. So that aligns perfectly. And then what I do is I take a piece of cardstock and I jam it in between the chamber and the baffle. And that holds it in place long enough for me to install it, and then it burns away pretty quickly on startup. Slight change of plans, people. This is the ECU out of the Max Peating Rod's 8 kilowatt heater. I did a little bit of testing with it, and I think that this ECU turns the fan considerably faster, and I am definitely interested in turning the fan on this as fast as possible. I actually have the fan and fan housing off of the Max Peating Rods because, well, I melted mine and I'm gonna have to get another one. That does mean that the testing on the Max Peating is going to be delayed a little bit, but I'll order a fan right away. Hopefully it doesn't take too long to get here. It's a little chilly in here. This window crack has been open for the exhaust and I haven't had any heat on. I'm going to power it up now so it does its self-check stuff and is ready to go. All right, that means we need to start adding fuel. Okay, oil fuel pump just started. Oh, I need to turn this on. I need to plug this in rather. Okay, we've got oil going in and diesel going in. This is a new ECU, so I don't know what the temperature is actually going to settle at. Curious to see what's going to happen here. So, just in case I wasn't clear earlier, what we have is the ECU out of the Max Peating Rod's 8 kilowatt, which is a different ECU than most 8 kilowatt heaters. This moves a lot more air, and so it is able to move more combustion air for starters, but also carry that air away off of the heat exchanger. Before I started any of this testing, I decided to check the flow rate of the heater with the fuel pump hooked up. So I installed a dripper in line with the fuel pump so that the fuel pump was pulling fuel through the dripper so that I could monitor how many drips per minute it was. And when I did that, it was very consistent, very steady at 80 drips per minute. This gets interesting because I am now dripping at 40 drips per minute, which is 50%. That's pretty easy math. So we are now burning 50% diesel fuel, and the rest is being made up with waste oil. I wasn't able to get anywhere near that in my previous tests, and so even more interesting than that is we are currently running it gets really complicated. I'm going to try to explain it without messing up. Currently running 209 degrees on the heat exchanger, but because we are running the Max Peating Rod's ECU, the fan is moving much faster, so it's actually removing more heat from the exchanger, meaning that if I were to use my other fan, the temperature would be a lot higher than 209. So it's creating more heat energy, but the heat energy is being carried away faster with the fan. What makes it even more crazy is that I'm running it without the screen as well. So no screen with a faster fan speed. I just came out to the garage. It is now several minutes later, probably close to an hour later. And I expected to see the temperature of the heat exchanger quite low because, well, I had slowed down the oil feed. But quite the opposite has happened. I think what was happening is I was actually making it so rich it wasn't burning everything that I was putting in. It is now 222 Celsius. And I am still dripping the same rate. I'll show you guys that drip rate. I'm not sure when this actually happened, but the fuel pump for my Max Peating Rods heater has stopped working. Yeah, it's not clicking anymore. The heater is still running, so the heater apparently does not know that the pump has failed. It is currently a little over an hour later, and the heater seems to be working well. It is 225 Celsius on the heat exchanger. I have settled at setting 5, and it seems to be pretty happy there. I'm gonna go check the carbon monoxide in a minute, but the temperature is fairly stable here. It's not fluctuating wildly. The fuel pump still isn't working, but it doesn't seem to matter. It doesn't seem to care. It is currently 1 a.m. The heater has been running steady since about 6 p.m. and I haven't had any issues really other than the fuel pump. I'm wondering if it's going to start back up tomorrow. I guess I do have another fuel pump that I can use. All right, 23, so that's 46. 46. I'm going to get a pencil or something and mark that on this thing. I'm gonna mark all of the settings so that I have them for tomorrow. 2 hours into the test for today, and we are up to 14 degrees Celsius. Seems a little slow to be warming up, probably because the heater's at the other side of the garage, and it's a fairly big garage. The heater is holding around 208 Celsius. As I say that, it just went to 209. But yeah, it's hard to see here. The drip rate of the diesel is still 48 drips a minute, or around that. Time for another update. It is another hour later, and the heater was working perfectly fine. Still working okay now, but basically what happened was the tank of diesel was getting a little bit low, and I didn't want it to run out. So I took it down off of the shelf to fill it up, and because it's gravity feed, when I take it down off of the shelf, the diesel stops running. So the temperature dropped considerably while I was putting some diesel into the container, and when I tried to bring it back, it started running very rich and smoky. What I've decided to do is give it a bit of a clean out run. So I've turned the oil feed all the way down to setting 1 on the 2 kilowatt ECU controller. And I've increased the drip rate to about 70 drips a minute. The exhaust is now burning clean, and it is 231 Celsius and rising. Again, it was perfectly stable for 3 hours today, and what made it go unstable is me messing around taking the container down off the shelf. I need to maintain a certain level of heat coming from the primary chamber heating up the secondary, or the secondary cools off too much. So that's one of the main ideas, that's one of the main things that I'm trying to do here. So it shouldn't be surprising to anyone that when I shut the fuel off to the primary, yeah, the secondary starts to have troubles. I'm in the middle of filming an inspection cam video, and it is 1:06 in the morning. Time to shut the heater down. It has been working well. The battery in my camera is about to die, so let's try to check this stuff quickly. 222 Celsius. I am running at setting 5. I had it cranked up to setting 6 earlier. As much as I need sleep, I also need to show you guys my exhaust setup. Oh, it snowed, by the way. This is my new exhaust setup. It runs way up there. It's pretty slick because none of the fumes that come out make it into my workshop now. And I can close the window a little more without worrying about the window melting on the exhaust. But I have had to resort to putting this piece of aluminum in there to stop it from touching the window frame. I have now gotten to a pretty rare point in my waste motor oil testing, and that is burning enough oil that I actually have to add more. So I'm going to be adding some oil to this. It's going to be pure oil, other than I am going to add a little bit of cetane booster. This stuff here. This is Redline cetane booster. And I'm also going to add a little bit of this just because I have it. I tested this last year and it didn't really seem to do much, but I have it and I'm never going to use it for anything else, so I'm going to put it in there. Stirred it off on Saturday at 6 p.m. with a full tank of fuel, and it is now Monday at 8:36 p.m. and we have consumed that much fuel. This is about 25 hours of burn, or actually more like 26 or 27 hours of burning. Because we're substituting with diesel, or this is substituting the diesel, we're not consuming nearly as much, and the waste oil seems to produce more heat than the diesel, so I don't need to burn nearly as much of it. It's kind of annoying because I want to burn a whole bunch of this to see what it does. I plan on running this for about another 25 hours, see what happens, but for now we're just going to fill this container up. I want the heater to continue running for a very long time, but at the same time, I am wanting to move on to other tests already. If it gets really nasty, if it starts pumping out a bunch of black or blue smoke, then I'll stop. But I don't think that's going to happen until it builds up enough ash that it actually, I don't think it's going to happen until it builds up enough ash that it clogs up the airway and then it'll spiral out of control. I guess that means I better order a fan so that I can test with other stuff, because I don't want to keep releasing videos saying, oh yeah, the heater's still running and I'm still testing it. So yeah, we'll see where it goes. That's gonna do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please remember to leave a thumbs up. And if you want to see more nonsense like this, be sure to subscribe. Since filling up the containers, I have burnt almost a little over a liter of diesel and about 2/3 of a liter of waste engine oil. And I'm pretty excited about the results. I am not completely delusional. I do know that there is some buildup happening inside of the chamber. And I am going to say that the next video that you guys see of this heater will be me tearing it apart. Hopefully between now and then I can release something else that isn't my heater burning waste engine oil, because I'm sure you guys want to see something else at this point. I would really like to do some more testing with the exhaust. So I have a 20-liter pail that I want to run the exhaust through some water. And I also have, I think it's a 70 or 80-liter tote that I also want to try to basically heat the water up and yeah, absorb the water, or absorb the heat energy out of the exhaust. So maybe that's what you guys will see next. Anyway, once again, that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you next time.